This thyroid webinar series is organized by Endocrine Society Sindh chapter. Pakistan Endocrine Society is a scientific, educational, and charitable medical organization dedicated to promoting the art and science of clinical endocrinology, diabetes, and metabolism for the improvement of patient care and public health. This webinar series consists of 4 sessions. Today is its first session. The next 3 sessions are planned on 28th Feb, 7th March, and 14th March. In each of these sessions, there will be 2 speakers and 1 theme. Today's theme is hypothyroidism, and we have 2 wonderful speakers who will discuss about primary hypothyroidism and subclinical hypothyroidism. Today, we are graced by the presence of some of esteemed endocrinologists as our chair and panelists. All of them are very well known, very well respected, and senior most icons of endocrinology. Let me introduce you to our first panelist, Dr. Naimul Haq. Dr. Naimul Haq is a consultant endocrinologist at Aga Khan University Hospital. He's a pioneer of endocrinology in Pakistan and a founding president of Pakistan Endocrine Society. He's the first one to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award by Pakistan Endocrine Society. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Our second panelist is Professor Dr. Javed Akhtar. He's a consultant endocrinologist practicing in the US. He's a medical director of Diabetes Center at Stewart Medical Group, Texas, USA. Before that, he was a renowned endocrinologist at Aga Khan University Hospital. He's joining us from the US, and it's 4 a.m. there. So a very special thanks to Professor Dr. Javed Akhtar for joining us this early in the morning. Our third panelist is Professor Dr. Abdul Basit. He's a consultant endocrinologist and director of Bakai Institute of Diabetes and Endocrinology. He's a founding and executive member of Pakistan Endocrine Society, and his institute has numerous services in the field of diabetes and endocrinology. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Our fourth panelist is Professor Dr. Saeed Meher. He's a renowned endocrinologist at the National Institute of Cardiovascular Diseases. He's a past president of Pakistan Endocrine Society and has provided numerous services in the field of diabetes and endocrinology in Pakistan. A very warm welcome to all of our worthy panelists. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let me introduce you to our speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Sara Nadeem, and she will talk about primary hypothyroidism. She is an assistant professor and consultant endocrinologist at Aga Khan University Hospital and executive member of Pakistan Endocrine Society. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Our second speaker is Dr. Asma Ahmed. She's a consultant endocrinologist at Aga Khan University Hospital and executive member of Pakistan Endocrine Society. She will talk about the subclinical hypothyroidism. Our speakers. Thank you, Dr. Asma.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Sara Nadeem for her talk on primary hypothyroidism. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Let me just put this up. Please, if you can confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay. Thank you very much to Pakistan Endocrine Society Sindh chapter leadership and Dr. Samira for inviting me today for this talk. As you mentioned, this will be focusing primarily on primary hypothyroidism, and I will go through that, and we will be conducting this in a case-based manner. So I have no financial disclosures for this talk. The objectives, primary focus is primary hypothyroidism, diagnosis and management. Then we'll talk a little bit about clinical caveats because there's a lot of information out in evidence-based guidelines, which I'll be talking about. But sometimes certain clinical situations arise, which we need to address and adapt to. I will touch upon hypothyroidism in pregnancy, and then just a couple of slides on secondary hypothyroidism, because I think it's important to have that information, the general public and our general family physicians as well. So this is the first case, and 41-year-old woman who is concerned about her weight comes to your clinic. This is quite common. Probably everybody who is signed in here as a general physician has patients similar to this patient. She has read up all of the signs and symptoms. She Googled hypothyroidism and has found a lot of signs and symptoms, and she believes she has hypothyroidism. She complains of feeling tired, cold, sometimes has constipation, has difficulty losing weight. When you take a deeper history, you realize that her lifestyle does not have a lot of activity in it, and her dietary choices can be improved. But nevertheless, she's worried that why can't she lose weight? On examination, her BMI is 28 in the overweight category. There is no goiter or enlarged thyroid gland on examination. The labs that we have, so for this patient, I've given two sets of labs to try and distinguish that the same presentation, based on the labs, how we will actually evaluate and treat the patient differently. So in both cases, the patient has thyroid antibodies which are positive, TPO, thyroid peroxidase antibodies that are positive at 60. And in one situation, her TSH level is within normal limits at 2, and her free T4 is normal. In the second situation, her TSH is 10 and the free T4 is low at 0.6. So the question I would like all of you to think about is, in the situation number 1, will you treat? The history is the same, the labs are just different, right? And in question number 2 situation, will you treat? The correct answer here is that in situation number 1, where the thyroid lab not be treating, regardless of the history. In situation number 2, where you have biochemical abnormalities, that is the only situation where you would treat. And I'm going to explain that. Now, the other case, case 1B, also, I want you to have this background in your mind as we talk about what the primary guidelines are from the American Thyroid Association that we will discuss. A 23-year-old male who comes to you saying he believes that he needs to be on thyroid hormone. His main concern is, otherwise he's completely healthy, is that he's started weightlifting for the last 6 months but unable to build muscle, and somebody in his gym told him that तुम अपने thyroid test check कराओ और तुम्हें thyroid की ज़रूरत होगी, thyroid hormone की. So in this situation, again, the patient is coming to you demanding levothyroxine replacement, and will you treat or not? And I will leave this answer until I further discuss. Okay. So just a short overview. I'm not going to go into a lot of basic physiology details. We want to focus more on the clinical management here. Is when we look at thyroid function test, there is normal thyroid function. We look at the TSH and the free T4. TSH is normal, free T4 is normal. That's euthyroid or biochemically euthyroid, right? We're not talking about the history, we're just talking about the test, and this is biochemical euthyroid, normal thyroid function. Hypothyroidism is where the TSH is high and the free T4 level is low. As you know, free T4 has its own feedback mechanism through the pituitary with the TSH. So if for any reason the thyroid is unable to make enough thyroid hormone for the body, the pituitary senses that and says, hey, you know, this body has a shortage of free hormone. We need to increase the stimulation so that thyroid can make more. And so the thyroid level, the TSH, goes up in an effort to push the thyroid gland to make more. But if the thyroid gland is unable to function, it is unable to make more. So this is what we see in primary hypothyroidism. Primary means the problem is in the thyroid gland. Secondary hypothyroidism means the problem is at a higher level, either the pituitary or hypothalamus, where the TSH may be normal or low, and the free T4 or the thyroid itself is unable to maintain enough hormone levels for the body. So the problem here is that the thyroid is unable to produce enough thyroid hormone because it is not being stimulated enough by the pituitary gland. So this is a schema I want you to carry with you as we discuss the management. This is again the feedback mechanism that I was talking about, in which hypothalamus produces the thyroid releasing hormone, which stimulates the pituitary gland to make TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. The end organ is the thyroid gland, where the production of thyroid hormone is and the release of thyroid hormones happen. T4 and T3, peripheral tissues, the T4 is converted to T3, which is the active form. And then these peripheral tissues also, hypothalamus and the pituitary, act as a thermostat. I always explain to my patients कि बिल्कुल ऐसा सिस्टम है कि आपने एक टेम्परेचर सेट किया है और फीडबैक में पता चलता रहता है, जैसे ही the T4 levels are normal, it tells the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland knows, and the TSH is just normal. For any reason, if the thermostat is broken, what will happen is that the T4 and T3 levels are abnormal and TSH is not appropriately responding to that. But in primary hypothyroidism that we're talking about, we need that intact system. And what it tells us is that free T4 is low and the pituitary gland responds by increasing TSH. Now, this is the previous slide was what we know as physicians, right? This is what our patients find out online. This is from one of the websites called Healthline. If I just Googled hypothyroidism symptoms, and this is what you find. And this is not unusual. I see a lot of patients, आप लोग भी देखते होंगे, जहाँ पे patients come in with these long list of symptoms saying कि मैंने पढ़ा है और on Google, I know कि मुझे ये सारे hypothyroid के symptoms हैं, and so I need to be treated. So that's where I think all of us need to take a step back and go back to our knowledge, right? And see what is the biochemical evidence of hypothyroidism and make the diagnosis first. Do not just rely on symptoms because that has not been shown to reliably predict whether somebody has hypothyroidism or not. Because as you can see, a lot of these symptoms are non-specific. You can have brain fog due to other issues, right? You can have thinning hair due to other diseases. You can have jaundice due to other liver issues, right? Mental health issues, brain fog can be age-related. Weight issues could be related to metabolism, age, their activity, their lifestyle. So there is no one thing on, and even not all of these are very specific enough to say, कि अगर ये symptoms हैं तो 100% hypothyroidism है. That is not true. 100% hypothyroidism diagnosis is only through biochemical evidence. So let's come to the guidelines from the American Thyroid Association, which are updated periodically. Most recent one is from 2014. And these are a good source. अगर आपको भूल भी जाता है कि आज talk में बहुत nitty-gritty details क्या थी, you can always just PubMed search it and look for the American Thyroid Association guidelines for hypothyroidism and be able to refer to them. Because I would suggest everybody, all of us who practice, we need to keep updating our knowledge because sometimes minute things do change with time. And even though we've been practicing for more than 10 years, we may need to adapt and be up to date in terms of the evidence that exists about the guidelines and treatment. So the most recent hypothyroidism review, if you suspect hypothyroidism, going back to the patient number 1, right? She comes in with symptoms. And situation number 1 में उनके TFTs, the thyroid function tests are normal. Situation number 2 में उनके thyroid abnormal. So the first thing you do, she came in, is you measure the TSH. If the TSH is abnormal, then usually we recommend free T4 or free thyroxine measurement. And if the TSH is elevated and if the free T4 is low, that is primary clinical hypothyroidism, and you would then start treatment. Then you make that diagnosis. Okay? Indication for treatment, and you start with roughly, I do a 1.6 micrograms per kilogram of levothyroxine as an initial dose, but that is just a rough calculation. Some people need much more than that, some people need less than that. So it's more of your clinical judgment as well, how symptomatic they are, as well as if they're totally levothyroxine naive, it's the first time. And if they're elderly, they have other risk factors where you don't want to give the full dose, you would start at the higher dose, right? Start the levothyroxine, you would repeat the TSH in about 6 to 8 weeks, not earlier than that. Only during pregnancy do we check the TSH more often, which is every 4 weeks, and I'll go into that. So anytime you make a change in levothyroxine dose, you would recheck labs, recheck the TSH at 6 to 8 weeks. उससे पहले नहीं check करना. Generally, rough rule is 2 महीने बाद आपने बुलाया और TSH उस वक्त check होना चाहिए. Make sure that this dose is adequate or not. A lot of times we see people who've been started फिर recheck नहीं हुआ 6-8 महीने बाद recheck हुआ और TSH is still not at goal. So then they are not being treated optimally, right? अगर आपने treatment start किया तो आपको देखना भी है कि ये dose जो मैंने starting की थी, is this adequate or is this too much, is this too little? So always check, and once the dose, you've checked the dose, TSH is normal at 2 months, then you can call them back at 6 months to do a TSH 6 monthly on people who are on levothyroxine replacement. Some people also recommend annually. I've seen that that provokes a lot of anxiety in patients. उन्होंने वैसे भी check करा रहे थे जल्दी. So I generally will say कि you can get it done at 6 months. If it is okay, then you can see me annually. Okay. So situation number 1A. Remember 1A में symptoms उनके सारे same हैं, उनकी thyroid antibodies भी positive है, but labs are okay, which is TSH is okay, free T4 is okay. So remember, thyroid TPO antibodies have been studied in the Western world. 30% of the population is positive, have positive thyroid autoantibodies. That just means that they have a risk of developing hypothyroidism or autoimmune related thyroid disease down the road. लेकिन अभी अगर TSH और free T4 normal है, that means they are not hypothyroid. So sometimes patients come in worried, मेरे पास symptoms है और मेरा TPO positive है, you should start me levothyroxine. No, the answer to this question is no, you would not. There's no benefit. In fact, some studies have shown that they actually may be harm in starting a patient with levothyroxine who have normal TSH and normal free T4. Okay, so this is a clinical caveat that it's important for our general physicians to know. Patient pressure or request. ये हमारा जो case 1B था, उसमें like the young person who comes in going to the gym and everybody is there has told them नहीं तुम्हारा thyroid का कोई मसला है because you're not building enough muscle. Our ethical obligation is sometimes it's easier just to write the prescription and वो patient चला जाता है, right? But that is not why we all are in this field, right? So our first gesture should be कि हमने no harm करना है, right? And if the patient is demanding something which is inappropriate, right? Even though they believe in it because of false information that's available online, it is our job to educate them. और उनको ये समझाएं कि by giving you levothyroxine when it's not indicated, is not going to help you. It's going to harm you, right? So I think that is one key point I really wanted to put in my presentation is that we as physicians also have a duty to our patients. कि बस dismiss अगर आप कर देंगे कि नहीं आपको जरूरत नहीं है, a lot of times they may go to another physician and demand the same. But if you actually educate them and make them understand कि हम क्यों कह रहे हैं कि they don't need levothyroxine, that goes much longer and much further for their benefit. Okay. So this question is also an important caveat that I want to talk about is that worldwide or Pakistan maybe there is a debate that a lot of times people who are hypothyroid, they have normal TSH levels, but they have some unresolved symptoms. ठीक है. Isme, there is the question about people start talking about T3 and what needs to be done. Right now, there is no evidence to give T3 formulations in combination. We don't have a physiologic T4, T3 combination pill, but studies are ongoing. If we come to a point जहाँ पे हमें T4, T3 की physiologic combination कोई pill मिलती है, फिर we can look at the clinical studies. But at this time, it's important to acknowledge the patient's symptoms, but tell them that scientifically, right now, there is no benefit in giving T3 as a routine. There are a few exceptions, but for those, I would suggest that the general physician should refer to an endocrinologist with clinical judgment taking into account. In certain conditions, some of us do prescribe a T3, but not as a routine practice, and most definitely not to people just as a tool for weight loss. That is actually recommended strongly against. Okay. So that was all about primary hypothyroidism in a clinical way. Now talking about hypothyroidism in pregnancy, because a lot of us see young females who are in the childbearing age who may have a diagnosis of hypothyroidism predating their pregnancy. And our goal is that even before they get pregnant, we should make sure that they are aware and they know exactly what they need to do for a healthy pregnancy. So this, for example, is a 33-year-old woman with past medical history of Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. She was diagnosed at age 26, so she's been hypothyroid for a while. She takes her medicine regularly. She's currently on 100. She recently got married and is planning to conceive. The last TSH checked about 2 weeks ago was 5, okay? So just above the reference range. So in this condition, I said, you need to have made sure this patient is educated. She's coming in before she is planning a pregnancy to ensure that her thyroid function tests are optimal for pregnancy planning and preconception, okay? So these guidelines are, again, from the American Thyroid Association regarding how do we manage thyroid disease in pregnancy and the postpartum period. So in patients who have known hypothyroidism, our clinical case, preconception counseling is key, okay? We should tell them that jab aap, when you are planning to get pregnant, or when you're planning to get married and pregnancy may be in the horizon, it's important to make sure that the TSH is optimal for pregnancy. Our TSH goal here for pregnancy is different from normal, right? So the normal reference range for TSH is anywhere from 0.4 to 4.5 in different labs. But in pregnancy and in the first trimester for the preconception counseling, we want the TSH value to be below either the reference range for each trimester. If that's not available, which it's not for our population, is to keep it less than 2.5 or 2 as a general precaution. And as soon as they find out they are pregnant, they need to increase their levothyroxine dose. So ये सारी बातें need to be told to the patient before they are pregnant, because by the time they are pregnant and they come see the endocrinologist or the general physician, they already be 4 to 6 weeks into the pregnancy. So known hypothyroidism in pregnancy going forward, if they are receiving once daily dosing of levothyroxine, as this patient was 100 micrograms, there are two schools of thought. One are to increase it by 29 to 30%. One is to make it easier. You don't need to do a lot of calculations. Just add 2 additional tablets weekly. So if they're taking 100 micrograms of thyroxine daily, you would add 2 additional tablets during the week. So they will take 9 tablets per week instead of 7 tablets per week. Okay, to mimic gestational physiology, because for initially the placental, there is placental breakdown as well of levothyroxine, as well as increased fetal needs during the first trimester in a pregnant patient. And like I said, the other option is to increase it by 25 to 30%. I'm not that great at mental math. I usually would go by the first recommendation. Just उनको पहले से easy, simple बात बता दें कि अगर आप one tablet a day ले रही हैं, तो जब as soon as you find out you're pregnant and before you even come to see me, just go ahead and increase that by 2 tablets during the week. Okay, dose adjustment as soon as possible is important, as well as rechecking and confirming biochemical testing, because they may have had a TSH 6 months ago, you don't know what it is now. And in pregnancy, because there is increased thyroid binding globulin, the free T4 is not the most reliable. So TSH and total T4 are usually the two main tests that we do, and checking them during pregnancy, either 4 to 6 weeks is recommended. Now, second situation is that the patient has a new diagnosis in pregnancy, right? They have no previous known hypothyroidism. So in the setting of pregnancy, if the TSH upper reference limit of 2.5 in the first trimester and more than 3 in the second and third trimester, you would label them as hypothyroid and start them on levothyroxine. Usually in cases in which there have been pregnancy loss in the past, as well as difficulty antibodies. Those are some of the caveats to consider. In infertility, in patients who have treatment, there is quite a bit of evidence that evaluation of serum TSH is recommended, and subclinically hypothyroid women, who Dr. Asma will be talking more about, need to be started on levothyroxine. So there is some controversy about patients who are, whether there should be routine screening of TSH, and that does not happen yet in all countries of the world. But for sure, in infertility patients, you need to have a screening TSH in all women. So this, in a nutshell, is the infogram. High-risk women check TSH as soon as pregnant, and also check a thyroid peroxidase antibody if the TSH is elevated. And depending on what the TSH levels are, if they're elevated, treat with levothyroxine. If they're between 2.5 and 10, if their antibodies are positive, you would definitely treat. If the antibodies are negative, if they're not undergoing infertility treatment and they have not had recurrent pregnancy losses, then you can sometimes not treat. But if it is between 2 and the upper limit of the reference range is the ULRR and 10, you would consider treatment with levothyroxine for better outcomes. Okay, so let's come and talk a little bit about secondary hypothyroidism. Secondary hypothyroidism, like I explained before, the problem is not in the gland. The problem is up on a higher level, either hypothalamus or pituitary. This can happen spontaneously. This can happen after pituitary surgery. So in this condition, the most important thing I wanted to kind of bring to notice for our general physicians is when you're monitoring patients who have hypothyroidism after pituitary surgery, or they are labeled as secondary hypothyroidism, please do not check the TSH and say कि TSH ठीक है तो levothyroxine dose ठीक है. The TSH does not tell us anything in secondary hypothyroidism, because remember, upper level पे TSH production is the issue, right? So TSH may be normal or low. It's the free T4 only in secondary hypothyroidism that will tell you whether the dose of levothyroxine is normal or not. ठीक है, ये बहुत important बात है. A lot of times people with secondary hypothyroidism have never had a free T4 done once followed in the community, and we need to remember that TSH हमें इधर कुछ नहीं बताएगा. It's the free T4 that will tell us. Okay, and we have to keep the free T4 in the upper half of the dose is adequate. So these are my objectives, and I hope I have been able to achieve all of them. If there are any questions, we'll take it at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sara, for such a wonderful talk. For audience, if you have any queries, you can drop them in the chat box and we can discuss them at the end of the session. Now let's move on to our second talk. I would like to invite Dr. Asma Ahmed to deliver her talk on subclinical hypothyroidism. She is a consultant endocrinologist at Afan University Hospital and an executive member of Pakistan Endocrine Society. Over to you, Dr. Asma.
Thank you very much, Dr. Samara, for giving an introduction and for inviting me, in this webinar series of thyroid. So in the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to talk about subclinical hypothyroidism, which is completely different from overt hypothyroidism because of many reasons. Sorry, I'm not able to move my slides. Let me stop sharing and then I'll share it again. Sorry.
Can't hear you too well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Asma, we can hear you.
Dr.
Yes,
Naeem
okay
is saying
now.
that, is it better now?
It's okay now. Thank you.
Thank you. Because somehow I'm not able to move the slides when is it okay now? Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am, it's fine now.
And am I
I can
audible?
see.
Can you hear me, Dr.
Yeah.
Naeem? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see the screen.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry. So I'm going to talk about subclinical hypothyroidism, which I said that it's different from, overt hypothyroidism because of several reasons. The first reason is because of the upper limit of the range, which is used to diagnose subclinical, and we also call, mild hypothyroidism, is completely different, from diagnosis of the overt hypothyroidism, in itself a matter of debate. The second reason is the symptomatology. The symptomatology is quite varied, and most of the times, the symptoms do not correlate very well with the biochemical diagnosis. The other reason is that treatment is controversial and disputed. Unlike overt hypothyroidism, in which there are clear-cut guidelines, and we know when to treat and when not to treat. This is one of the diagnoses, in medicine when, the treatment is mostly based on the physician preferences as opposed to the clear-cut guidelines. So basically it varies from physician to physician. So I'll basically will be discussing few cases, and we have created a poll for the participants, and we would like you to participate in the poll, and this is completely anonymous, so you can answer whatever you want to, and there's not basically right or wrong answer in this, because this field is very much controversial, as I have told before. So we'll start with the case number 1, and then we'll discuss the case after you give the answers in the poll. This is a case of a 67-year-old man who comes to endocrinology clinic for evaluation of his TFTs. He has a history of and type 2 diabetes and is taking metformin, glucophage, statin, and ACE inhibitor. He reports mild fatigue and mild tolerance to cold weather. He has no family history of autoimmune diseases. His blood work reveals an elevated TSH level of 7.
ये जरा प्रोग्राम हो जाए.
Please, अगर हम आप सबको mute कर दें, because it's causing a lot of disturbance. Reveals an elevated TSH level of 7.2. The normal is between 4 to 4.5, and a normal free T4 result. 3 years ago, his TSH level was 6.5. We'll start the poll. Can you start the poll from your side? G. So I'll ask the audience to please select the answer. The question is right in front of the screen as well. I have, shared it in my on my presentation. So this is the patient who is 67-year-old male who has come to endocrinology clinic for the evaluation of his TFTs, and he has got a TSH of 7.2 on 2 occasions. One occasion it was 7.2, and after 3 years ago his TSH was 6.5. And he has like mild fatigue and mild intolerance to cold, but he has no family history of autoimmune diseases. So it is a multiple choice question, and there are 4, answers. A is start thyroxine. Number 2 is repeat TSH in 3 months and check TPO antibody level. The third answer is reassure the patient that no treatment is needed. Repeat TSH test in 1 year. The number 4 choice is option is order a thyroid ultrasound. Can you share the poll results, please? Good. So start levothyroxine, 23% have responded, 50% have responded that repeat TSH in 3 months and check TPO antibody levels. 24% has responded, reassure the patient that no treatment is needed, repeat TSH in 1 year, and 7% order a thyroid ultrasound. So I'm glad, that not a lot of participants have opted for the choice thyroid ultrasound. And I'm also glad that, a lot of participants have not given the right answer to. So I can, make an argument and kind of try to convince, okay, isme kya answer hona chahiye. So you can close the poll. Thank you. I have to stop sharing and read it again because, sorry. Okay, so there's no doubt that in this case, the diagnosis is subclinical hypothyroidism because the values, the number we have seen, the TSH level of 7.2 and 6.5 twice, and the normal free T4 level. So how do you define subclinical hypothyroidism? It is a biochemical diagnosis. It is defined by elevated TSH and low free T4 and low 3. And it's regularly encountered by, I would say that there's like, we are basically seeing more and more subclinical hypothyroidism because a lot of physicians are now ordering more and more TSH and, thyroid profile. The good thing is that it is not a fatal disease. It has been associated with adverse cardiovascular, metabolic, mood, and pregnancy outcomes, but the benefits of treatment with levothyroxine are unclear. Many patients have persistent concerns and the correction does not always resolve the patient's symptoms. So that is the main problem, that patient comes with a lot of non-specific symptoms, as, Dr. Sara Nadeem also mentioned, even in overt hypothyroidism, the patient's, symptoms sometimes not correlate very well with the biochemical profile. And in subclinical hypothyroidism, basically it is a major problem. It affects 4 to 20% of the adult population. It is more common in women and in older people. About 90% of the patients with subclinical hypothyroidism have TSH levels of 4 to 10, but a slight increase may be normal in older people. The risk of progression to overt hypothyroidism ranges between 2 and 5% a year. Presence of antibodies to thyroid peroxidase and in particular higher TSH level increase the risk. There are certain risk factors and causes to have subclinical hypothyroidism. If there's a family history of thyroid disease like Hashimoto's, if there's a prior person history of any form of thyroid disease, presence of anti-thyroid antibodies, if there has been, radiation treatment in the past to head, neck, or chest, the history of other autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, or SLE. if the patient are on certain medications like lithium, amiodarone, and iodine, and old age also increase the risk of having hypothyroidism. So here you can see that there is an amplified, response of TSH to the slight changes in the free T4 levels. But, in few cases, what happens that this response of, this relationship of TSH and T4, basically it gets affected. So there are certain conditions in which you do not see that amplified response of TSH to the free T4 level. So there can be, more increase in TSH in comparison to your, like, T4, so there can be normal free T4 and increased TSH. So there are certain cases in which it can happen, like it can happen in obesity. Increased age also causes, increased level of in TSH, female gender, calcium, iron, or iodine supplements, and there are certain antibodies. There's different assay problems which can cause this problem. So going back, to basically to the question, the case which we were talking about. So in this case, obviously the TSH value also gives you, basically the hint that what you need to do. But there's another thing which you need to see, which is the age of the patient, which is very important. So this patient is 67-year-old, 67-year-old, and why is it important? Because I'm going to, discuss this trial, which was with the name of the TRUST study. It is called the TRUST trial, and this was basically published in NEJM in 2017. It was originally intended to be a cardiovascular trial, and it focused on patients who were like, more than 65 years of age. So mean age in the trial was 74.4 years, that was 75. It provides information only on older individuals who had mild subclinical hypothyroidism and symptoms. So it was actually a randomized double-blind parallel group trial of levothyroxine versus placebo. As I mentioned before, that mean age was, 75, and the participants were 65 or older, and who had persistent subclinical hypothyroidism. And they defined subclinical hypothyroidism as having TSH between 4.60 to 20. So they were very, liberal in that sense, because usually we define subclinical hypothyroidism with TSH of 10 as a cutoff, but they took individuals even with more, having TSH of more than 10, like till 20. So, and it was measured on at least 2 occasions that were 3 months to 3 years apart, with the free thyroxine level within the reference range. So this was basically, showing the overall study randomization. So 737 underwent randomization, and half were, assigned the levothyroxine group, and the half 369 were assigned to the placebo group. So they were equally randomized in both the groups. Here you can see we have discussed about the mean age of the participants, and they both, the both of the groups, they had, wide range of the comorbids, like ischemic heart disease, atrial fibrillation, hypertension, diabetes, osteoporosis. So you can see, they were equally randomized and distributed in both of the groups. So here you can see the, outcomes, that the primary outcome, which was basically hypothyroid symptom score and the Tidner score, there was not two groups, like the participants who were given placebo and the participants who were given levothyroxine group. There were not much of a difference, in their hypothyroid symptom scores and Tidner score. And if we, because हमारे पास बहुत सारे patients आते हैं, they kind of complain, कि weight कम नहीं हो रहा, and we get the thyroid not like them, hum bhi attribute hote hain ki, oh, this is because of your hypothyroidism, and if you start you on thyroxine treatment, it will improve. But yahan par jo hai wo secondary outcome mein, if you see, there was not much of a difference, in secondary outcome, in the BMI, waist circumference, blood pressure in the placebo group versus the thyroxine group. And agar hum adverse symptoms dekhein, to wo bhi dono groups mein jo hai wo, they were not different. So there were no adverse events noted in thyroxine group and the placebo group. So the conclusion for this trial was that the levothyroxine provided no apparent benefit in older persons with subclinical hypothyroidism. So this was a very important, study in a trial that was randomized, and it showed, because it kind of, I know it's just one randomized clinical trial, but it gives us insight, that a lot of patients come to us in this age criteria and with subclinical hypothyroidism, levothyroxine on the basis of, mild symptoms like fatigue ki complaint kar rahe hote hain, which Dr. Sara also has mentioned, that these are very, sometimes it kind of, they are very non-specific symptoms. So after that in 2019 in BMJ, there were rapid recommendations, were published as a clinical practice guidelines. Uh, uh, Basically, these guidelines was triggered by a recent systematic review of randomized control trials, which were like 21 randomized control trial of around 2,190 participants, and they recommended that it was a very strong recommendation against thyroid hormones in adults with subclinical hypothyroidism. Uh, so here you can see that these were the patients again, that they had, no symptoms, they had, yeah, or maybe they had only non-specific symptoms. But here, they focus mainly on age group who were older age group, because ये जो study में जितने भी उन्होंने meta analysis किया था उसमें जो major trial था, that was a trust trial. तो जो जितना भी उन्होंने crux लिया था वो basically trust trial पे जो है वो ज़्यादा dependent था. So that's why they focused more on. So there are few exceptions here that it does not at all, it does not apply to women who are trying to conceive or patients who had TSH above 20. And it may not apply to patients who had severe symptoms, and it depends, how you define the major symptoms, and young adults such as less than 30 years of age. So it's very important कि सिर्फ ये उन लोगों के लिए recommendation दी गई थी इस उसमें जिसमें के कोई symptoms नहीं थे या फिर बहुत ही non-specific symptoms थे, जैसे हमने बात की कि fatigue हो गया, very non-specific symptoms जो कि हर जगह पे fit होते हैं, not just hypothyroidism. So basically, what was the reason, for giving these rapid recommendations or clinical guidelines? The need was, basically realized because it was seen that we are prescribing a lot of, thyroid hormones to our patients, sometimes without any reason. So it was seen that in 2015, so among the most commonly drugs, thyroid was one of them in USA. And even उसके बाद जितने भी systematic, जो है वो studies हुई हैं, meta analysis हुए हैं, इसमें देखा गया है कि even UK की population में, Norwegian population में जो prescription है thyroxine की वो ज़्यादा बढ़ती जा रही हैं, और especially subclinical hypothyroidism group. So it's very important, to see that whenever we prescribe these, medications or thyroxine to our patients who had subclinical hypothyroidism, who had minimal symptoms, or who had, not much of an increased TSH levels. So it's very important to realize that उसमें added जो है वो burden आता है patients पे, because then, it comes with long-term regular visits and blood samples to monitor the hormone levels. They have to take these daily medications, and the overdosage can lead to the hyperthyroid symptoms. And even when we treat hypothyroidism, we kind of explain it to our patients that this is not a medicine, this is a hormone, it's just like simple hormone that you have to take. But then we have to realize that there are a lot of issues when you prescribe it to subclinical hypothyroidism, because they have to take it for the rest of their life, long term, and then the compliance becomes a problem. And there are certain precautions which they need to take, because there would not be better absorption if it's not taken 4 hours apart of any products containing calcium or iron. So these things becomes problematic. So it's very important to make a correct diagnosis, and to make a decision when you see patient with subclinical hypothyroidism. So this rapid recommendation basically was on the basis of the meta-analysis, and here you can see the comparison that if you see the general quality of life, thyroid-related symptoms, fatigue, tiredness, depressive symptoms, cognitive function, even after 2 years, they saw the mortality, cardiovascular events, and side effects. There was not significant difference between two groups, the group which were given placebo and the group which were given thyroid hormone treatment. But again, I would say that this was focused on older age group and younger age group too. But then again, it was more focused because of that trust trial on older age group. So this is the message which I want to highlight here. The age is very important. So I will also review here, because we are talking about the old age population. So I want to, review the sites of action of the thyroid hormone on the heart of with hypothyroidism, because, the heart जो है वो आपका major target organ होता है for, thyroid hormones. और जो mainly आपके जो heart का जो affect होता है thyroid का, वो तो या तो directly या फिर indirectly it occurs through T3 hormones. So it causes increase in systemic vascular resistance. इसकी वजह से you can have, increased diastolic blood pressure, जिसकी वजह से after load बढ़ता है. Renin, angiotensin aldosterone system involved decreased preload, decreased cardiac output. So there are a lot of effects, thyroid function has on heart. So there was this, it was a long time back in 2008. So there was this meta-analysis on subclinical hypothyroidism and heart disease and mortality, which showed that it may increase risk of cardiovascular heart disease, particularly in patients younger than 65 years of age. But there was another, this was recently published in JCEM in 2021, and it showed association of thyroid hormone therapy with mortality and subclinical hypothyroidism. And it's very interesting to see here, that there was no significant, in the subgroup analysis, there was no significant difference basically in mortality in the older age group. But the association becomes significant in the younger age group, that is less than 65 years of age. So what about myocardial infarction? Because I'm sure that a lot of colleagues, they basically see patients, with impaired TFTs in patients who have had recent myocardial infarction, and they are basically, they see these patients as a referral from the cardiology group. So this is the study which showed that levothyroxine treatment for patients with subclinical hypothyroidism and acute MI is unlikely to be a benefit. So this was a study which included 95 adults with persistent mild subclinical hypothyroidism who presented with acute MI at 6 hospitals in the UK, and most of them had ST segment elevation MI. Inclusion criteria were patients who were older than 18, and they took TSH value between 4 to 10. So it was not more than 10. 46 participants were randomly allocated to receive levothyroxine and was started at 25 microgram, and they kept the TSH level between 0.4 and 2.5. So the primary outcome was left ventricular ejection fraction at 52 weeks, and secondary outcomes were LV volume, infarct size, adverse events, and patient-reported outcome measures of health status, health-related quality of life, and depression. So there was no significant differences in any of the secondary outcomes. And even in, if you see the adverse events in the placebo group, the adverse events were 36.7, and in the, thyroxine group, they were 33.3%. So not much of a difference, but sometimes, there are complications associated with overtreatment, especially in the older age group, like it can affect the heart, bone, and that they can give the psychiatric manifestations as well. So it can cause atrial fibrillation, osteoporosis if you overtreat your patients, if you give, thyroxine to patients unnecessarily without making a confirmed or proper diagnosis. So if we go back to our, question again, so the options were in that question were, let me go back. So there was another option, repeat TSH test in 3 months and check TPO antibody levels. So this patient had basically TSH levels done on 2 occasions. So so basically, according to the guidelines, there's no need, to repeat the test for the 3rd time to make a decision. You will obviously repeat the test, just as a follow-up, but to make a decision, you do not need to do test, after 3 months. And what about the antibodies levels? If we see the data on, thyroid antibody levels, especially at this age, so TPO measurement should be considered when evaluating patients with subclinical hypothyroidism, and if positive, the rate of 4.3% versus 2.6% per year. So obviously, if your antibodies is positive, the rate of, conversion to overt hypothyroidism is higher. But does it matter at this age? So therefore, it may or may not influence the decision to treat. The last option, which I think 7% of the participants, they selected, was the utility of the ultrasound in making a diagnosis of hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism. So there was an Italian study in which, progression to overt hypothyroidism occurred more often in patients जिनके ultrasound thyroid scan showed diffuse hypoechogenicity, which is an indication of chronic thyroiditis. But अगर हम डायग्नोसिस बनाने की बात करें या अगर उसकी ट्रीटमेंट की बात करें तो it's not recommended, and it provides no major information. So there's no utility of getting the ultrasound done in patients who have subclinical hypothyroidism or maybe overt hypothyroidism. So here, if we see the options once again, I don't think that there's no need to do poll again, but in this patient, the correct answer is that you would reassure the patient and no treatment is needed. repeat TSH test in 1 year, because I have given you the whole data, about the results of the TRUST trial, which was a randomized multinational trial, and there was another, meta-analysis and the rapid recommendation. And according to that, in that patient, if you start thyroxine, maybe you would do more harm than, doing favor to this patient. So basically, there's no need to start treatment. You will follow this patient, but you will not start thyroxine in this patient. So I'll go to the second case now. So this is the case of a 25-year-old woman who reports fatigue, dry skin, and cold intolerance, which have always been present and have worsened for the last 4 months. So she's a young patient, 25-year-old female. She has these symptoms of fatigue, dry skin, cold intolerance. She had a history of miscarriage and currently trying to conceive. She has a strong family history of hypothyroidism. Her mother and both sisters are on thyroxine. Her blood work reveals an elevated TSH of 5.5. The normal, again, I would remind you, is between 4.4 to 4.5, and a normal pre-T4 result. The test is repeated in 3 months' time and came out to be the same. So this test has been repeated after 3 months as well. And the TSH level is 5.5, and she's planning to conceive. She had a miscarriage in the past. There's a strong family history of hypothyroidism. Her mother and both sisters are thyroxine. They are on thyroxine, and she's 25-year-old female. I think I've given you many hints here. So what should you do next? And we can start polling now. Thank you. So again, to remind you that this is completely anonymous, please try to participate. You can see the questions, like, okay, because the question is not visible here, but पूरा नहीं आ रहा है यहाँ पे, लेकिन do we have enough answers? So you can share the poll. Okay, so good. So 65% said that you would start levothyroxine. 15% said that repeat TSH in 2 to 3 months and check TPO. I'm going to discuss it in my slides. Reassure the patient that no treatment is needed. Repeat TSH test in 1 year. 8% as opted for that, and check thyroglobulin and thyroglobulin antibody levels. Okay. So I'll share the screen. Can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, Dr. Asma, we can see.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sumaira. I still have time.
Yes, you have a few minutes left.
Thank you. Okay, so so a lot of participants have selected start levothyroxine. That's very good. You would start levothyroxine in this case. So here we can see literatures say. So subclinical hypothyroidism appears common in women with miscarriages. Among women with a history of miscarriage or subfertility, the prevalence of subclinical hypothyroidism is actually high. It's 20% when using a TSH cutoff of 2.5. There was a recent trial with the name of tablet trial, which is thyroid antibodies and levothyroxine. It showed actually very strange results. It showed that there was no improvement. It was again a randomized control trial, but it showed that there was no improvement in live birth or any secondary pregnancy or neonatal outcomes in euthyroid women with thyroid antibodies taking 50 microgram of levothyroxine compared with placebo. But the problem is that this is just one trial and few observational studies, so we cannot change our practice on the basis of just one trial. And there were some limitations to that trial too, you know. बहुत सारी limitations थी इसमें, ये भी limitation थी कि जो thyroid dose थी वो throughout pregnancy जो है वो adjust नहीं की गई थी. Antibodies में जो है वो issues थे, so there were limitations, you know, to this study. But different societies have again, you know, different recommendations. So if you see American Society for Reproductive Medicine, it is reasonable to test infertile women trying to conceive and to treat subclinical hypothyroidism with levothyroxine to maintain a TSH within the normal range. And हर जगह पे जो normal range है वो बताई गई है कि 2.5. So women who have TSH greater than 2.5 and or thyroid antibody positive can be considered for treatment with levothyroxine. The Endocrine Society recommends levothyroxine treatment in women with subclinical hypothyroidism, especially if they are thyroid antibody positive. American Thyroid Association recommends that undergoing in vitro fertilization or intracytoplasmic sperm injection can be treated with levothyroxine. This is very important because we get a lot of referral from, you know, from our colleagues who are in the, you know, infertility centers, and they're seeing these women, and they come across patients who have, you know, increased thyroid antibodies, and they had a history of miscarriage in the past, and they're going for, you know, infertility treatment. So it's very important to recognize it here because ATA recommends that these patients should be treated. So if you go back to the question, इसमें जो दूसरा वाला था जो कुछ लोगों ने select किया था कि you'll repeat TSH in 2 to 3 months and check TPO antibody level. So you can see here, you know, that test was already repeated in 3 months and came out to be same. And when I said, you know, okay, that I gave you a lot of hints. So there are so many things here, you know, in which the treatment becomes important, you know, necessary. You cannot get away, you know, without giving treatment to this patient because यहाँ पर इतने सारे hints हैं. She's 25-year-old, she's a woman, she has, you know, अगर हम symptoms को यहाँ पे disregard भी कर दें, she's trying to conceive, she had a miscarriage, she has a strong family history of hypothyroidism, so you cannot, you know, even अगर उसमें इसमें आपके पास antibody test negative भी आता है तो भी आप जो है वो patient को treatment start करेंगे. So basically एंटीबॉडीज आर इंपॉर्टेंट बट यहाँ पर दो चीजें थी जिसमें एंटीबॉडी नहीं सेलेक्ट इसलिए किया था बिकॉज एक तो पहले पेशेंट का टेस्ट हो चुका है और दूसरा एंटीबॉडी इस केस में विल नॉट will not impair your decision in in starting her on treatment. It will give you a guidance कि भाई miscarriage prior हुआ था तो maybe बहुत ज़्यादा raised antibodies थे आपको बाद में future में उसके लिए help करेगा but not in guiding treatment. No matter what antibodies level are, you will start this patient on thyroxine. So let's talk about how do you initiate treatment in subclinical hypothyroidism. जैसे डॉक्टर सारा ने जो है overt hypothyroidism का बताया था. So in patient with subclinical hypothyroidism, जो initial L-thyroxine dosing होती है is generally lower than what is required in the treatment of overt hypothyroidism. So our daily dose is between 25 to 75 micrograms should be considered depending on the degree of TSH elevation. Further adjustment should be guided by clinical response and follow-up laboratory determination, including TSH values. But then again, it's different for people. For patients who are planning to conceive or who are undergoing IVF treatment or ICSI or who are pregnant who have already conceived, so वहाँ पर जो है वो थोड़ा सा जो dosage होती है वो maybe it would be more aggressive to keep the TSH level. So let's talk about case number 3. So this is a case of a 48-year-old woman recently had a death in her family and was under a lot of stress. She feels more fatigued, and while screening on internet found out that she could be suffering from Hashimoto's disease. A lot of patients now come, and this Hashimoto's disease is very popular, in terms of coming to the clinic. She also has generalized body ache and insomnia. She denies cold intolerance, constipation, depression, or lower extremity edema. So she has few symptoms like fatigue and, but she does not have constipation, cold intolerance, depression, or lower extremity edema, and she has no family history of thyroid disease. So you check her TSH level at her request, which is elevated at 5.5. So what would be the best approach? Can we start the poll? So number 1 option is check anti-TPO antibodies. Number 2 is reassure the patient that no treatment is needed. Repeat TSH in 1 to 2 years. Third option is repeat TSH in 3 months. And if the result is still abnormal, start levothyroxine. And the fourth option is start levothyroxine right away. Okay, let's see the answers. Interesting. So 38% have responded that check anti-TPO antibodies, and that's what we do in our clinical practice. So 26% have said reassure the patient that no treatment is needed, repeat test in 1 to 2 airs. So you just have one, TSH level. So you cannot just wait for, another air and repeat the test because that would be too long. 34% has selected repeat TSH test in 3 months. And if the result is still abnormal, start levothyroxine. Um, yes, start levothyroxine only 3%. So that's good that 3% have, basically held back and said, okay, we will wait. We will not just start this patient on levothyroxine right away because that's what happens. That's a temptation, when these patients come to a clinic, they are I'm not, basically we should always take the patient symptoms very seriously. So here I'm not disregarding any symptoms, but sometimes it happens, that it becomes very tempting when patient comes, okay, bahut fatigue ho raha hai, that's very, severe, we can't do anything, we can't even walk and things like that. But you have to, see other things as well, which are going on in patient's life or like depression or, they're undergoing a major stress in their life. And this was happening to this patient. That she had a death in the family, and she had just fatigue. If you see other symptoms, she did not have any of the constipation or edema or any other symptoms. So there's a temptation to start thyroxine right away, but I think it should not be done. You should wait for some time. So the third option, repeat TSH test in 3 months, and if the test is still abnormal, then start levothyroxine. Antibodies test, I agree, we do it, even like sometimes I also do it in my clinical practice. But the point is that, this patient's age was around 48, 49. So even if antibodies comes out to be positive, it will show you that, this patient has an increased tendency to convert into overt hypothyroidism. But apart from that, the decision would remain the same, that you will repeat the TSH in 3 months and then you'll start this patient on treatment. So antibodies, plus minus, but again, the most, likely answer is that you will repeat the TSH in 3 months. And if it comes out to be positive again, then because this is not the patient who is, planning to conceive, and, increase antibody level would make a lot of difference if you do or not. But again, it can be considered. So if we see the symptoms, because it's very important to see here, जैसे डॉक्टर साला ने भी बात की थी, symptomatology is very important. कि बहुत सारे patients होते हैं, miserable होते हैं. So if you see here, अगर हम symptoms देखें जिनके साथ patient आते हैं, so 60% of the patients who are euthyroid, they also have, more than one symptoms, and 15% have more than 4 symptoms, which we kind of attribute to a subclinical or overt hypothyroidism. So it's very important, that we listen to the patient carefully कि कौन से symptoms हैं, कितने significant symptoms हैं. So that's very important. And another important thing is that depression is very important, because we also get a referral from, psychiatry colleagues. Patients who have depression, they usually do screening, screen them for hypothyroidism, because this is major cause of depression as well. So this was a systematic review and meta-analysis, which again showed this strong association between depression and the. This is very important. So in this patient, she denied depression, and this association becomes significant, in geriatric patient again. So geriatric patient important होता है कि अगर depression है और subclinical hypothyroidism है, so you can consider, starting them on treatment on the basis of depression के कौन सा, criteria fulfill हो रहा है. So basically, these are the different guidelines, guidance on thyroid hormone treatment for subclinical hypothyroidism. So there are different societies, as Dr. Sara has also mentioned. These are the NICE guidelines, up to date, American Thyroid Association, ETA, European Thyroid Association. But यहाँ पर अगर आप notice करें तो major चीज जो है वो TSH का cut off जो है it remains 10. So it's अभी तक जितने भी चीजें जितनी भी studies आई हैं, जितना भी data है, अभी तक subclinical जो हम cut off consider करते हैं 10 है, except for the one trial which I discussed, which which was a trust trial, which was a randomized control trial, जिसमें उन्होंने बहुत liberally जो है वो 20 का cut off लिया था. But apart from that, only one trial does not change our clinical practice. We consider normal, subclinical hypothyroidism with TSH cut off, we usually take 10. So conclusion, I got a message that I've also exceeded my time limit, so I'll just conclude. So in conclusion, it's very important that we have to see patient as a whole. So it's not just, thyroid hormone levels or biochemical profile. We have to see if there's any underlying pathological condition or the disease of the thyroid gland, which predispose them to have, overt hypothyroidism in the future. We have to see if this is a persistent problem or a temporary problem, like past जो है वो thyroid levels अगर कोई हुए हुए हैं, अगर नहीं हुए हुए, तो we need to repeat the test, as I mentioned, in 3 months time. And then you have to take into account patient age, family history, symptoms, thyroid antibody status, and multiple TSH values. And you can answer these questions, and then you can make individualized decisions for your patients, just like your diabetes treatment, कि जिसमें आपने individualized decision जो है वो लेने होते हैं. So future directions क्या हैं? I have shown you multiple studies, but still there's an urgent need for clinical trial of symptomatic patients with subclinical hypothyroidism, especially in younger individuals and especially in our population. And such studies should be an order of magnitude larger in size, consider whether other factors like genetic variation are very important to see. And another thing which we have to see, that TSH and free T4 may not reflect thyroid status of the peripheral tissue. So there is a need, to develop better thyroid, markers to tissue hypothyroidism, and then we have to include in these trials. Thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Asma, for such a wonderful presentation. Now, I would like to invite our worthy panelists for their comments regarding today's session. Dr. Naimul Haq, sir, your valuable remarks regarding today's session.
You can't unmute. Hello,
We
can you
hear
hear
your
me?
voice now. Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, and needless to say that both speakers were excellent, and they covered the very important topic on hypothyroidism, which is at the level of general practitioners and non-endocrinologists. There's a lot of things which need to be done. And one of the things that is also mentioned by Dr. Sarah Nadeem and also by Asma, that when you start somebody on thyroxine replacement, or when you change the dose, TSH should be done after 6 to 8 weeks. And I've seen some general practitioners doing it weekly and increasing the dose and going into thyrotoxic range. And that's a very important point, that TSH should be done after 6 to 8 weeks, not earlier. Also, talking about secondary hypothyroidism, Sarah mentioned this very nicely, covered it. There's something which I've seen, that patients who have very low FT4 and a TSH of like 6 to 7 range, they were wrongly diagnosed to be primary hypothyroidism, because a failed pituitary gland can sometimes produce biologically inactive TSH, which can be up to 6 to 7. So we have to correlate between the two. What is the FT4 level and what is the TSH level? Is TSH appropriately high for a very low FT4 level? And if it is not, then one should suspect secondary hypothyroidism. I remember a patient, a retired gynecologist, who had very similar findings, was given thyroxine, diagnosing at primary hypo, and she came into the hospital with adrenal crisis, because she was replaced with thyroxine without assessing her pituitary adrenal axis. So that's a very important aspect. Otherwise, I think both talks were excellent. And I think it's very important for our physicians, especially non-endocrinologists, to attend these meetings. Because I remember, as William Osler once said, it is surprising how a physician can practice without reading, but it's not surprising how badly he may do it. And by reading, you can change to CMEs now. So I think CME is very important to keep up to date for everybody, young, not so young, senior. One has to keep up to date to practice good medicine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to ask Professor Dr. Javed Akbar Professor Dr. Javed Akhtar for his valuable comments. Sir.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here to meet the two speakers and to hear from them, and also to see my co-chairs who are all friends and old colleagues, and very nice to see everybody here. Yes, excellent presentations. It'll be very interesting to find what the actual prevalence of diabetes in Pakistan is, particularly in the more iodine deficient areas. I think some of these community-based studies really need to be taken so we can make appropriate recommendations for testing. Regarding testing, I think Sarah mentioned one of the issues. Most labs that I recall in Karachi and Pakistan do a thyroid panel. And while the speakers talk about free T4 and TSH assessment, the thyroid panel really covers total T4 and T3 along with the TSH. And we've tried to change that in the past, to change the thyroid panels with very little success. But I think it's emphasized to be doing. It'll also be interesting, maybe the speakers can take up the role of testing T3 as well as replacing T3. Maybe that's for another time and another discussion. But one test that was mentioned is the antibodies. And again, my experience was that people, some practitioners, were repeating antibodies, and the antibodies levels were varying. They were going up and down with time, and the patients were getting very stressed with that. And I've even come across one individual who was treated with steroids to suppress the antibodies. So I think we have to be careful not to be repeating antibodies once you have determined that the antibodies are present in a certain titer. You draw your conclusions from that, and you do not check antibodies at every time, making the patient very anxious that the levels are going up, because it really doesn't have any further therapeutic benefit. Now, as far as the presentation by Dr. Asma, I think this is a topic which indeed has challenged a lot of people. Studies are coming out. In fact, there was a study this month in the journal Thyroid, where they took patients with who were on levothyroxine, took them off levothyroxine, and found that over time, 1/3 of them remained euthyroid. And one of the things to remember is that patients and physicians, they tell the patients, and the patients believe that once you're on thyroid replacement, you're on it for lifelong. And you come and you get your test, the dose is adjusted, but you remain on levothyroxine lifelong. And for many patients with thyroid diseases, which either are pituitary or primary, or post-surgical, post-operative hypothyroidism, that's true. But a lot of patients, like you mentioned, are started for reasons other than those, and they don't need to be on lifelong replacement. If you look at this article, many was successfully taken off. And again, you have to think, and the trouble is, again, we cannot go back to the start of when the treatment was initiated.
We can't hear you. Still, sir, we can't hear you. It's mute.
Is this a way of telling me that my time is up, or?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that is something to consider as well. certainly in the pregnancy and pre-pregnancy situation, the situation changes. Also remember that, there are certain conditions which cause a transient rise in the TSH level, and some of those have to also be considered. And again, starting somebody on lifelong treatment has to be considered in these kind of patients who have, maybe who are recovering from a non-thyroidal illness. So I am very cognizant of the time constraints, but very good presentations. Nice to meet all of you, and inshallah, best wishes to Ali for organizing this series of thyroid talks, which I think are very timely and very necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Dr. Abdul Basit, sir, your honorable remarks regarding today's topic.
Right. First of all, I'd like to congratulate PES, especially SIND chapter, especially Ali, for organizing this thyroid webinar series, as has been said by Javed as well. Very timely, very badly needed. Congratulations to both the speakers. Sara and Asma were fantastic, very clear, to the point, and I hope the messages have been well taken by the participants. I'd also like to thank Naeem Saab and Javed Saab to join us. It has been a long time to hear and meet both of them. We keep bumping into each other in various platforms, but we were not able to hear Javed for a long time, so it's nice to see them. I'll also like to thank Hilton Pharma for being supportive of this event. And I'll also like to thank you for your hard work. So thank you all. I won't like to need anything to add right now, as we are running out of time, and let Said give the comment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Dr. Said Meher, sir, would you like to give your valuable comments?
Thank you. First of all, I'm really honored that I've been invited by the Pakistan Endocrine Society, especially Ali. Very comprehensive talks by Dr. Sara, Dr. Asma. I think so. Few things which already has been discussed by both of my teachers, Dr. Naeem Ulaq and Professor Javed Akhtar, that dose adjustments, yes, it should be at least 6 weeks in pregnancy, in 4 weeks. This is important. We always look for the secondary hypothyroidism in some of the cases. Just few things more, that we are a poor nation. We cannot afford a very expensive test, where Professor Javed has rightly been said that we have tried to figure out the things where thyroid panel is there. That's pretty expensive. So just for my colleagues, primary healthcare practitioners and physicians, that if you suspect somebody with the thyroid problem, I think so only a TSH is enough initially to look into the thyroid status. If you're not suspecting the secondary thyroid, for hypo or hyperthyroidism, initially TSH is enough to look, and then you can subsequently order the other things. The second thing which I always emphasize to patients when they start on thyroxine, that it should be taken on the empty stomach. And this is something important in maintaining actually the levels and maintaining the dose. And these two things, if we tell the patient right from the beginning, I think they will help us out in looking at the patient, and not very frequently, as said by Dr. Asma as well as Dr. Sara, that usually if the things are fine, usually see the patient in 6 months' time. In females, yes, if they're pregnant early, but usually not very frequently when the TSH is normal. So again, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you all for this very wonderful experience.
Thank you, sir. Now we have a few minutes for answer session. We have a lot of questions in the chat box, so I will ask one by one. The first question is, what should be done if patient symptoms do not resolve after treating the hypothyroidism? Dr. Sara, would you like to answer this question?
Thank you, Sumaira. Yes, that's a good question. So the most important thing is, you see, if you are treating the patient they were initially hypothyroid biochemically. You have to recheck the TSH. If the TSH is now at goal, if their symptoms are still persisting, you tell them that जो अब remaining symptoms हैं, they are probably unrelated to the thyroid because there are other non-specific symptoms, right? So the biochemical evidence trumps the symptoms. If the TSH is at goal, you would not keep increasing the dose. Again, there is that caveat that there is a little bit of a discussion and controversy about possibly T3 being added to T4, but that's not something I would recommend general physicians to be doing routinely because it is not recommended. In certain cases, certain circumstances, we do that for people, but that would require a specialist to make that decision. So generally, if you've started with symptoms that have not completely resolved and yet the TSH is at goal, then you also need to look for secondary causes that maybe that fatigue is coming from something else. कि उनको vitamin D deficiency तो नहीं है, कि उनको anemia तो नहीं है. Instead of just keeping going up on the levothyroxine when the TSH is normal.
Thank you. Second question is, does thyroid peroxidase antibodies, its measurement makes any difference in treatment? Do we need to measure it routinely? Dr. Asma?
Yes, I talked about it in my presentation too, you know, कि जो है वो कुछ cases होते हैं जैसे pregnancy हो गई या patients planning to conceive or prior history of miscarriages, उसमें it would make a difference, but बहुत ज़्यादा routinely use करना जो है वो सिर्फ especially हमारी population में पाकिस्तान में cost ही add होती है. So there are certain indications जिसमें it will make a difference, and I, you know, went by case to case कि किसमें हमने यूज किया था एंटीबॉडी जिसमें ज्यादा फोकस किया और जैसे डॉक्टर जावेद ने कहा कि इट्स नॉट जस्ट फ्रॉम फिजिशियन पर्सपेक्टिव यू नो कि एंटीबॉडीज वो बार बार कराए जाते हैं ये पेशेंट्स के लिए भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है बिकॉज इफ दे आर नॉट इन टच विद द कंसल्टेंट इफ दे आर नॉट यू नो प्रॉपर्ली काउंसल तो मेरे पास बहुत सारे पेशेंट इस तरह से भी आते हैं जो कि खुद ही वो थायराइड प्रोफाइल के साथ एंटीबॉडीज खुद करवा के रिपीट करवा कर आते हैं और बार बार करवाते रहते हैं एंड यू नो एंड इट क्रिएट्स अ लॉट ऑफ एंजाइटी यू नो बिकॉज 700 है 800 है डॉक्टर स्माई तो कम नहीं हो रहा यू हैव स्टार्टेड ऑन ट्रीटमेंट यू नो तो ये इट एड्स मोर एंजाइटी तो अगर इनिशियल भी कराते हैं तो हैज टू बी सर्टेन इंडिकेशंस बिकॉज फॉर जीपीज यू नो फॉर इंटर्निस्ट फॉर फैमिली प्रैक्टिशनर्स इवन फॉर यू नो लाइक स्पेशलिस्ट इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि व्हेनेवर वी गेट एन इन्वेस्टिगेशन डन वुड इट इम्पैक्ट योर मैनेजमेंट और डिसीजन और ट्रीटमेंट अगर वो उसका कोई इम्पैक्ट नहीं होगा तो सपोज जैसे हमने 60 ईयर ओल्ड मेल की बात की थी या हमने एक 49 ईयर ओल्ड फीमेल की बात की थी उस पर क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा अगर नहीं होगा सो यू वुड नॉट गेट इट डन अगर आपकी ट्रीटमेंट पे जो है वो उस पर असर हो रहा है अगर आपके डिसीजन मेकिंग में हो रहा है सो विल गेट इट डन सो नॉट इन एवरी पेशेंट और वही बात है कि जनरल पॉपुलेशन में वैसे भी 30% में यू कैन हैव पॉजिटिव एंटीबॉडीज तो यू हैव टू सी यू नो कि किन पेशेंट्स में कराना है तो यू हैव टू सेलेक्ट द पॉपुलेशन
थैंक यू Next question is, what is sick euthyroid syndrome? Dr. Naimul Akhtar, would you like to comment on this?
Can you repeat the question, Sumaira?
Sir, the question is, what is sick euthyroid syndrome? So you have to.
Sorry.
Sir, it's still mute. I don't know what's...
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. This is a syndrome which is seen mostly in patients who are admitted to ICU and they have low FT4 and a normal TSH. This is sick euthyroid syndrome. So ideally, one should not do thyroid function test in a patient who is in ICU. Till they're out of ICU, that will be the ideal time to do it. And it creates a lot of anxiety and sometimes patients are treated for no obvious reason. This is called sick euthyroid syndrome. Anybody else would comment on it, please?
Thank you, sir. Next question is, in pregnancy, what is more reliable? Thank you. The next question is, in pregnancy, what is more reliable, free T4 or total T4? Dr. Javed Akhtar sir, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, sure. Just before answering that question, I just wanted to take up one additional point to the question that was asked to Sarah. The patients who complain of continued weakness and symptoms even after getting thyroid replacement. We did a study back in AKU many years ago, which we checked levels, vitamin B12 levels in patients with hypothyroidism. We found that almost 40% had B12 deficiency. And I estimate that, the proportion of B12 deficiency in these patients is going to be high, and you will get quite a benefit replacing B12 in these patients. So I would advocate that if you have this sort of situation, make sure you check your vitamin B12 levels. And even if you don't, it'll be worth screening for B12 deficiency. In terms of pregnancy testing for total T4 or free T4, the answer is, the total T4 is a preferable test, but you have to remember that the normal range changes in pregnancy. It's trimester specific. It changes. What is normal in the non-pregnant state would not be considered normal, and you may have to go another 50% above the upper limit of normal range to get your normal T4 range. So just remember the norms are different in pregnancy because of the estrogen effects. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, we know that thyroxine dose is calculated as 1.6 microgram per kg body weight, but is there any difference in starting dose of thyroxine if the TSH is 15 or if the TSH is 150? Dr. Abdul Basit, sir, would you like to comment on this?
I think Basit Saab and Saeed Saab are not with us. They have logged out, or maybe their connection is low.
Okay. Dr. Sara Nadeem, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, the unmute mute thing is giving an issue. Would you like to repeat the question, please, Sumaira?
The question is, the starting dose of thyroxine is usually 1.6 microgram per kg body weight. But is there any difference in thyroxine dose if the TSH is 15 or if the TSH is 150?
So that's a good question. As I discussed in my presentation, there would be a difference, but also we have to look at the comorbidities of the patient. So the starting dose, the 1.6 micrograms per kilogram calculation is a rough estimate. Again, some people, like if that 1.6 micrograms per kilograms is coming out to be 300, I would not necessarily start at 300 micrograms. It would depend on how old is the patient, how symptomatic they are, and yes, if the TSH. So if they come in with a TSH of 100 and they are hospitalized with mixed edema coma, that's a different thing, right? Then you would give the full dose and they're a younger patient. If they're an older patient who just had an MI 2 months ago and their TSH is 10, low, free T4 is low, and their 1.6 micrograms per kilogram dose is calculated to be 100, I might actually start at 50 micrograms and then go up gradually to 75 and then 100 and then recheck in 8 weeks. So yes, there is a difference depending on not just on the TSH level, but also on their comorbidities and what their clinical presentation actually is. But what I do is my own clinical experience is that I will calculate the 1.6 micrograms per kilogram and then give them a little bit less unless there is any contraindication where I have to give a lot less. Because usually I've seen that the calculation may over calculate for the majority of at least our Pakistani population. I've seen that. But that's a clinical, just my own experience.
Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Asma. What if the patient forgets to take thyroxine in morning? Can he take the dose in evening, or he should double the dose on next day?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so basically, problem is, if you don't take thyroxine early morning, or, at least half an hour before breakfast, it doesn't get absorbed properly. But if you forget, if you don't take it, agar aap bhul jate hain, so you can take it, another time of the day, जिसमें जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा आपने खाना नहीं लिया हो, थोड़ा सा fasting state जो है उसको mimic कर रहा हो, because उसमें भी जो है वो 60% तक आपकी absorption जो है वो हो जाती है. So you can take it on the same day, but you should not take it, like double dose on the next day, because उसमें फिर tachycardia, palpitations और इस तरह के complications होने के ज़्यादा problems होते हैं. So बहुत सारे patients होते हैं, जिसमें compliance issue हो जाता है. You kind of forget taking thyroxine, before breakfast. So जब आपको याद आ जाता है तो आप उस वक्त भी ले सकते हैं, instead of, completely not taking the dose.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is how to take thyroxine in the month of Ramadan, and is there any role of diet for the treatment of hypothyroidism? Dr. Naimul Haq, sir.
Patients, a lot of patients of mine in Ramadan, they come to me after leaving not take it because we didn't have enough time, half an hour or 1 hour before Sahri. So we didn't take. So I tell them that you should take it as soon as you get up, even if it's 15 minutes before, at least it'll be 60, as Asma said, 50 to 60% absorption rather than zero absorption, but if you don't take it. So this is a common question patients ask about Ramadan, that we don't have enough time when we get up into Sahri time. Asma, you'd like to comment on that?
जी नहीं सर, आपने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से हाईलाइट किया है, बट सिर्फ एक चीज़ जो समेरा ने दूसरा क्वेश्चन किया था अबाउट द डाइट, एंड दिस इज अ वेरी कॉमन क्वेश्चन वी कम अक्रॉस, और आजकल बहुत ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन आता है, एंड एवरी पेशेंट, ईच एंड एवरी पेशेंट आस्क अस कि हाउ कैन वी इम्पेयर अ डाइट, कि हमारा थायराइड सही रहे, या हमें जैसे सब क्लिनिकल के साथ आते हैं कि हमें फ्यूचर में ओवर ना हो, या अगर थायराइड है तो थायराइड लेवल्स बेहतर हैं और थायरॉक्सिन की डोजेज जो है वो ऊपर नीचे ना हो या ज़्यादा ज़रूरत ना हो. सो जितनी भी रिसर्च हुई है उसमें डाइट्स पे बहुत सारा जितना भी मटेरियल है उसमें जैसे वेजिटेबल्स पे है, जैसे ब्रोकली है, कॉलीफ्लावर है, इस तरह की चीज़ें हैं, बेस्ड प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, उस पे बेसिकली एक्सेसिव अमाउंट में डेटा है कि हाँ इट शुड बी अवॉइडेड बट नॉट इन मॉडरेट अमाउंट. तो या जैसे केल हम लोग आजकल जूस और ये सब बहुत ज़्यादा लेते हैं फॉर डाइट पर्पसेस, तो वो भी एक्सेसिव उसमें है. सो अगर इफ़ यू आर टेकिंग इट इन मॉडरेट, so my answer to my patient is कि you cannot like change anything in diet except for the iodine. तो जैसे कुछ requirement होती है कि iodine requirement पूरी होनी चाहिए, especially if you are pregnant, तो उसमें आपकी iodine requirement जो है वो in comparison to normal individual increase हो जाती है, जो कि सी फूड से और बाकी चीज़ों से आप कर सकते हैं. But apart from they have this whole list of questions कि कौन से vegetables नहीं लेने चाहिए. ओ मैं ब्रोकली बहुत ले रहा था इसलिए मुझे थायराइड हो गया है, वो पढ़कर गूगल करके आ रहे होते हैं. So this is very important which we need to tell our patient कि if you are taking it in moderate amount, और कितनी ब्रोकली ले सकते हैं आप दिन में, तो it will not cause thyroid problem, it will not impair your thyroid. So this is a very common question which like मैं अब ज़्यादा मुझे अपने clinics में सुनने मिलता है, and maybe my colleagues will if they have something to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asma. There is one last question. How to take sorry, this question is already done. In secondary hypothyroidism, how to adjust thyroxine doses as TSH be unreliable? Professor Dr. Javed Akhtar sir, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, I think this was covered in one of the talks, but I think the key message that should go across is that do not check TSH level, because I have seen people reducing the dose of levothyroxine based on a very low TSH level, which will universally be present in patients with secondary hypothyroidism. So do not check it, and certainly do not reduce the dose based on a low TSH. What you should do is to check a free T4 level and adjust it, keeping the free T4 in the mid-normal range or as close to that as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, we have reached to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for joining us on weekend. I would like to profusely thank our worthy panelists, Dr. Naeem Haq sir, Professor Dr. Abdul Basit, Professor Dr. Saeed Meher, Professor Dr. Javed Akhtar sir. Thank you so much for joining us this early in the morning. And also, I'm very thankful for the two speakers for such a wonderful talk. A special thanks to Dr. Ali Asgar, Vice President of Pakistan Endocrine Society, for organizing this academic session. I would also like to thank Mr. Waqas and Hilton Pharma for providing technical and logistic support for this session.